This week I wanted to talk a little bit about past, present and future. In January of this year, I had seen a therapist who does CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy. I was on a waiting list, and then I started to get my appointments starting in January. After about 8 sessions or so, I ended up moving to a different place. So I moved in February, so which means that I have to transfer, or they have to transfer who's kind of looking after me and who my therapist is going to be. So at present, I don't have a therapist, and I haven't had one since around February. I've been put on a different waiting list, so I'm not sure how long it will be, but it will be another CBT therapist. So CBT is something that was quite different for me in terms of therapy, because previously I've had talking therapies, but the structure and the questioning and the way that the sessions are kind of analysed were quite different with CBT. I'm not trying to put down CBT, but there's a lot of homework that you end up having to do, and it's a lot of paperwork, and it's very kind of tangible stuff that we're kind of trying to work with. So you might have a certain feeling, you might have certain emotions, you may have certain moods at any given time, and then from my experience, what the CBT does is kind of make you analyse those feelings and what actions come with those feelings. So if you feel a certain way, you might act in a certain way, and it's a lot of dissection of emotions and moods, and it's basically trying to change your thinking or your pattern of thinking so that you don't act in a certain way that you might usually do. So I wanted to talk to my therapist. This was actually since December, and I wanted to talk to her about it in like January or February when I was having those sessions. But then because of the nature of CBT, it can kind of feel a little bit mechanical and a little bit cold in terms of doing the homework and kind of dissecting and analysing certain things, and it feels like it takes the emotion out of it, if that makes sense. And so, yeah, I just found it it's quite different in terms of just having a kind of laid back kind of talking therapy where you're talking and it's prompted by a therapist. So something that's been on my mind quite recently, and I don't know why, because it's not something that I would usually think about or think about so vividly, I guess. But in terms of what I've been through, which I spoke about in the other videos, in terms of what I've been through in terms of my reproductive health and my life and how it's kind of affected me. So in terms of what happened in terms of the medical negligence thing that happened that I told you about already, so that was 6 years ago. So I've literally just had 6 years of my life almost kind of wasted in a way, because it's impacted on my normal physical health in terms of what I would be able to do and just how I would live my life. So it's kind of impacted on my normal life, which it previously wouldn't have, because I was feeling quite healthy and whatnot before. And then in the past few months, though, I've been thinking, well, this year in September, I'll be turning 34. And I'm going to touch a bit on like fertility and kind of intimate stuff, but because I think some people might want to hear it, they might be going through it, and also because I haven't got a therapist at the moment, so there's no one to kind of springboard these ideas with. But if I'm turning 34 this year, and well, we all have women have biological clocks, don't we? So I'm thinking, if I am fertile, then I would only be fertile for about maybe 10 more years if I am. However, because of what's happened in terms of what I've been going through, it's to do with my reproductive health. So my uterus, my cervix, my ovaries, all of that sort of stuff. So if what has happened has actually impacted my health and I'm now infertile or barren or whatever you want to call it, that has impacted them more than just the 6 years of my life so far, but it's actually impacting what my future will be as well. And that goes for whether or not I planned to have children or have a family or anything like that. So although it's not something that I would usually think of previously to like the 6 years and whatnot, this has kind of impacted, well, this may have actually taken away my fertility or affected my fertility in such a way. And I may decide that I actually want to, within the next 10 years. It seems very unlikely because I've had this pattern for the past 6 years, and I wouldn't necessarily say that it's getting better, it just alters. And the way I'm affected and the way I react to it has altered over the past few years. So it's just kind of come to me that, well, what if you do want that, and you don't have that, and it's kind of been taken away from me, and it's not because it's not something that has just come up recently, and it's not something that I think I've done, because previously to this, I have actually been pregnant. I didn't have the child, but I was pregnant. So I knew that and it was a while ago, but I was capable of getting pregnant, even though it was a while ago. And I also want to mention on that note, just because someone may have or a woman may have a termination at one point in her life, it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to affect her future, and it doesn't mean that that's such a solid decision that she wants to continue it into her whole life. It may be the case for some women that they have an abortion many years ago and they want to stay childless for the rest of their lives. That's completely their choice. However, just because a woman or a young girl or teenager may have an abortion at one point in their life, it doesn't mean that's solid and it's concrete for the rest of their lives. They may choose to have a child further down the line. It doesn't just kind of press a button which says, okay, this is for the rest of your life. It just might mean that the person that you're pregnant with and the time that you're going through it just isn't the right time and it doesn't work for you. So and that's how I feel for myself personally. The time and the person that I would be having the child with, it didn't work for me, and it's not something that I would want to continue with at that time and with that person. But if it was someone else further down the line at a different time, then that is a different situation really. So I've been kind of thinking about that, and I guess because I'm going through a lot of tests and scans and whatnot, I guess it's kind of a very simple question that I could just ask my doctor: can you do a fertility test? Am I fertile? Has this affected my body in a certain way that I'll never be able to have a child if I so want one in the next 10 years? Because let's be honest, I haven't got a lot of time, or most women don't, and I think if you're over 40, it kind of reduces your fertility a great deal. So I'm thinking about the next 10 years, and when I think about it like that, I just think, yeah, you're probably not going to have kids. Can't afford to have kids. I'm unemployed at the moment, so it wouldn't be. It's not something that I would be planning per se, but the idea is still there. Just because I may not want them, it doesn't mean I want my body to be butchered in such a way that I can no longer have children in the next 10 years or in the near future, I would say. So I've been kind of thinking about that. And so I guess it's something that I could easily find out from my doctor. However, I do have a feeling, because I've had a lot of different tests and scans and whatnot, I do have a feeling that it will be a very invasive procedure to find that out. I don't know, I could be wrong. And so I guess it's something that I should ask my doctor, which I will do. I'm still waiting for some test results. So that's something that I will have to ask my doctor about. And then that would also change my method of thinking and my pattern of thinking, because if he says, well, no, your fertility is great, everything is fine, then it's just out there. It doesn't mean I've got a partner to do this with or to have a child with, but it just kind of changes the pattern of my thinking and what I think my future may be, and what my present kind of changes the present of where I am. So I've kind of touched on past, present and future in terms of what I was saying and what I was discussing with you. So that's just kind of some thoughts that were coming to me this week and have kind of come in over the past few months. I guess this kind of confusion, I guess, and querying what the future is to hold for me. But this is supposed to be a poetry video, so I'm gonna now read you a poem that I wrote, and it's called Scars. What to do for scars so deep when raindrops fall on earth and creek? Where to go when scars are too far gone, when birds cry out their lonely song? Who shall heal those dreadful scars, bring cures and remedies from far? Who will lift what's been put down, what's been stomped on further to the ground? How to restore what's been erased, bring life back into eyes so glazed? What can we do when we have no choice, no rights or power, no spirit or voice? Who will lift our spirits high, listen to us as we cry? When does one receive justice for all that's lost and all that's missed? What shall I do with this blackened soul, whose life is drained and felt its toll? Where can this empty body go to rid the scars that forever grow? Who will capture the midnight sky as my inner strength descends to die? When will mornings bring afresh that of the earth, that of the blood, the earth and flesh? So that one is called Scars. That poem is called Scars. And yeah, thank you for listening this week, and I'll see you next week.